Hi, I'm Julie Cini. I'm the CEO of Advocacy Beyond Borders, and a global organisation supporting patient organisation groups all over the world. Yeah, I'd love to tell you my story. It starts many moons ago. I had a little baby called Montana in 2004. She was my first daughter, and when she was 3 months old, I took her to the doctor because she had a cold. And the doctor really wasn't worried about her cold. She was more worried that she had no reflexes. She was about 3 months old at the time, and they quickly sent me to a paediatrician in another town about an hour away, and I needed to go there that afternoon. And then at the paediatrician said to me, "Oh, I've seen this in a textbook before, but I'm not really sure what it is." So they then sent me to a major hospital called the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne. And we were quickly diagnosed with a disease called spinal muscular atrophy, something I'd never heard of, something that I would soon learn that would kill my child. And as a first-time parent, it's devastating news. They take you into a dark room and they give you the horrific sentence: your child's going to die, there's nothing we can do, take her home, love her. You've got 12 months with her. And we were just absolutely mind blown. We checked Google, what could we do? There was literally no cure for SMA and no opportunities for treatment or anything like that. And we had this perfect baby. There was nothing wrong with her in the sense of physically looking at her. She didn't look disabled, but she had a physical disability, and that was that her arms and legs were wasting away, and all her internal muscles were also wasting away. And she survived 10 months, and it was a pretty long 10 months. And at the end of it, I sort of learnt over time. I was her mother, I was her doctor, I was her nurse, I was everything to her. And sometimes I forgot to be her mum because I was too busy trying to advocate for her to get what she needed so she could, we could keep her alive. She did die peacefully one morning on the 25th of June 2005. We'd been in hospital for a couple of days, and I had rung Ross. We were an hour away from our hometown because the local hospital couldn't cope with us. The next town's hospital, we were too complex for them as well, so we had to go to a children's hospital about an hour away. And yeah, we were looked after there like we were royalty. They loved her, and they looked after her very well. But this day something was different. She wasn't herself, and I called Ross over and I said, "Look, I think it's time." And he's like, No, it's not. We need to do this, this and this. And I'm just like, no, she's going, And once he understood what was happening, she did die quite peacefully. She was unconscious. It was a beautiful moment, actually. And I knew she had to die for her to be free from what she had. And she taught me many lessons in life, in her short 10 months. And, I promised her that I would fix things for others. I couldn't fix them for her, but, I would try my hardest. We had decided not long before she had died that we would start an association because there was no association here in Australia. And we had toyed with the Montana Brownlaw Foundation, but who knew who Montana Brownlaw was and what she had? So we had to call it something collective for everybody past, present and coming in the future. So we called it Spinal Muscular Atrophy Association of Australia, or SMA Australia. And we started connecting with, mums and dads in Australia, and got a really good community going. It was all going well. I got pregnant again in the 2006, and SMA is genetic. You have a 1 in 4 chance every time you get pregnant. So we spoke about it. He said, "Jewel, it can't happen to us twice. We're not that unlucky." And I could have went for genetic testing, and we decided against that. We decided whatever came our way was what we were meant to have. So yeah, when I was 13 weeks pregnant, he was coming home one afternoon and he was turning into our driveway and he was hit by a truck. He was killed instantly. I was 13 weeks pregnant. I called the emergency services, everything. It was the most horrific thing I've ever seen. I saw him lying on the road. I couldn't get to him. They wouldn't allow me to get to him. And I'm just like, what the hell has just happened? You know, like, why have you left me with, you know, what you've, like, we owned a farm. We had a sheep farm. You've left me with pregnant sheep. And I was just, in hindsight, it was just crazy. But I always said that Montana needed him more than I did, and he had a really big struggle after she died that, you know, he missed her so much. So she needed him more than I did, and he got called home. So I went on to have my second daughter. I knew the complications. Montana had a really long laboured birth, 3 days worth. So I opted for a cesarean for Zali. I got to pick her birthday, which was actually the 13th of December, which was my grandmother's birthday. And I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna have, you know, a beautiful baby to grow up and remember. And, you know, I knew the risks. The doctors came just after Christmas. They gave me Christmas with her. And when a doctor does a house call, you know there's something wrong. The midwife was there, and as soon as they came into the room, they took Zali from me and said, sit down. And I'm just like, what is it, you know? And they said, she's got it as well. And I'm just like, what on earth have I done in this world to, you know, have this happen to me? And they're like, you know the drill, Jewel, you know, it's 12 months. You've got 12 months with her. And her journey was a lot different to Montana. She was a lot less severe. With SMA, you have different, you have different types of SMA, but you have different strengths of SMA as well. So we always said that Montana was like a 1.0 and Zali was a 1.8 or a 1.9 because she didn't need any breathing equipment, she didn't need any cough assist machines. You know, she was totally different. So her journey was, yeah, it was beautiful. We did lots of things with her that I didn't get to do with Montana. We had a carer that came and play with her, and we would build different scenarios. We had a high tea one afternoon to try and give her experiences on this earth that she wouldn't have necessarily got in her life. So we made things fun, and unfortunately her first illness was her last illness, and she died on Christmas Day 2007. So I lost the whole three of them in 2.5 years. But I guess I want people to see what you can do out of what happens to you. Yeah, this is pretty horrific, pretty tragic, but I had two ways to go forward. I had the way of sitting in a white room or a chair doing nothing for the rest of my life, but my kids meant something to me. They meant everything to me. They were my world. They still are my world. They might not be on this earth, but I love them dearly, and I get to remember them every single day. And I can't wait for the day that I get to see them again and, you know, be able to tell them that I fixed the disease in Australia for them. Yeah, I started Advocacy Beyond Borders because I wanted to, I was given an opportunity. A seed was planted in my mind that there was something bigger than my work in Australia. And over the last 18 years, I've campaigned, I've advocated, I've spoken to many people many times over to change the way that people see SMA in Australia, and I've basically fixed the disease over there. I've got 3 high-cost treatments across the line. I've got a national newborn screening program and a genetic screening program, and literally no matter what stage of SMA you're at, whether you're pre-conception, if you get missed there, you're going to be picked up at birth and you're going to be offered one of not 1 but 3 treatments. And as little as a couple of years ago, that was not an option in our community. And I sat on a meeting with some colleagues from Pharma over 18 months, and we grew this business, and we grew the concept of, hey, you've got something out there that you can offer, not just Australia, but the rest of the world. And that's how Advocacy Beyond Borders was born. I now have an opportunity to, use my expertise and give my knowledge to those who need it, so that they can have a quicker pathway to, get the things that they need, like treatments, like newborn screening, like genetic screening. I happened to be the test case, and yeah, it was hard. It was 5 years worth of hard work, but I got it. And now don't tell other countries to reinvent the wheel. Let's partner and do this together, so that, we can save many more lives. And that's what this is about. The end goal here is having it so a parent doesn't lose their child, because that's horrific. You should never have to bury your child. So we want to make sure that, these countries are fully supported, have been versed and educated in the tools and the things that they need to be able to get out there and replicate what I've done in Australia. So SMA, or spinal muscular atrophy, is a rare genetic muscle wasting disease. So it wastes away all your external muscles, like your arms and legs, but it also wastes away all your internal muscles, like your coughing, your breathing and your swallowing. And the earlier you are diagnosed, the worse off you are. And it affects your motor neurons, so it's not an intellectual disability, it's a physical disability. We've all heard of motor neurone disease. It's like the childhood version of motor neurone disease, and your muscles just waste away. And if you don't use your muscles, you lose your muscles, and they atrophy. That's what wastage is. And they slowly just get weaker and weaker, and your immune system just can't keep coming back from illness and being battered by different things that it happens to it. And usually if you have type 1 SMA, historically you were dead within the first 12 months of life. Sometimes it could be up to 2 years, but it was pretty quick, and most of the kids died under 10 months of age. Type 2 is a little bit different. They're diagnosed between 6 and 18 months, and they last into teenagers. And then there's type 3 that go up into adulthood. But clearly that's all changed now, because we have access to 3 treatments, and we're now seeing new generation SMA where we've got kids that are walking. I get to go to classrooms and I can see kids that I don't even know that have SMA, because you can't tell them apart from anyone else. They're not in a wheelchair. They don't look any different. They're playing with their peers. So, that's pretty fantastic. SMA is genetic. Both parents must carry the gene for you to pass it on to your child. And every time you get pregnant, you have a 1 in 4 chance of having a child with SMA. Usually if you have a type 1 child, you'll always have a type 1 child, like myself. If type 2, you'll have a type 2 child. And the severity is dependent on the amount of backup copies. So we lose what's called a survival motor neurone gene, but you have a survival motor neurone gene 2, or SMN2. And determined of those backup copies is how weak or severe you are. If you have a lower number, you're much more severe. If you have a higher number, you're much less weaker. So 1 in 40 people around the world are carriers for SMA. So it's a high number, but you've got to match up with that other 1 in 40, and that's the lottery. That's the Russian roulette that you play, that we all play every day. So, hopefully moving forward, we can get people screened before they start their reproductive life with their partner to see whether they are a carrier, and then they can make some informed choices to, do we go naturally or do we have IVF? And that's starting to happen in Australia now, so that's pretty fantastic. And then, of course, newborn screening will be really poignant moving forward, because with all of the treatments, the earlier they're given, the better off chance that they have of survival, and the better chance that they have of living a normal, healthy life. because your motor neurons are wasting away as soon as you are born. So we need to stop that by having medication. So newborn screening is super important to be able to make sure that kids have the best quality of life throughout their whole life.